Hey, this is Les from PowerUp Training, and I'm going to walk you through the installation of a Windows Server 2019 in a Hyper-V environment. Our goals is to talk about which files you actually need to download to do the installation. Then I'll actually go through a full installation from beginning to end. Along the way, we're going to deal with some of the issues, such as how to convert from an evaluation to the production standard version of Windows, and also then how to activate the guest client. And I'm assuming that you have a legally purchased Hyper-V environment to work within. So let's go watch. I've already launched the Hyper-V Manager. I'm going to go into the host that I want to work off of, do new with a right click, and from there I'm going to put a name in. The name is just a way for us to be able to identify the Hyper-V installation. You can always go back and change this name, and it is not tied to the name of the computer. That's taken care of inside the Windows after the installation is done. I'm going to go ahead and choose Generation 2. I am making the decision to go to Generation 2 because it supports the more modern way of booting off the UEFI boot environment versus the old-fashioned BIOS boot. This is probably the best choice going forward unless you have some legacy requirements. For the memory, I'm going to choose just some basic size memory. We can always come back and reconfigure our virtual server. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we turn on the network card and using the existing card that's tied to the virtual switch. From here, we now need to take a look at giving a file name for the storage space. While the physical file name could be changed, as is the location, I find it best to think this through and find a name that matches the virtual server. Next, we need to point to an installation file. I have actually downloaded the evaluation version of Windows Server, selecting to go with the ISO. You'll see that the link to this location is in the notes below. Later, we'll deal with converting this from an evaluation unit to a working standard server. Once that's done, we'll see a summary of all our work, and we'll click on Finish. Now, here's a key piece. Once it's created the disk, it's important that you actually connect to the server, not start it, because when you start it, you're going to see that it wants to boot off a CD, but you have to press the key quickly enough for it to launch the installation piece. If you were to start it and then connect, you may miss that and it will not start up the installation. So once we're at this point, we've connected the ISO and we're going to go through a standard server installation piece. And the server piece should go pretty quickly. I'm going to speed up the process as we answer this because the actual installation piece is not that tricky other than choosing which version you're going to go with. I'm choosing the desktop experience. If you go with a standard edition, then you're going to have to be very adept at using PowerShell to be able to do all your management and configuration. I'll do a custom installation. I only have the one drive. I add drives later on after the server's up and running, and then it's going to start the copy process. And this is where I do the time-lapse video to speed things up. And then eventually it's going to finish up and then want to reboot. Once it reboots, I'm going to go ahead and close this window just so we can see that the machine is still running. We didn't stop the machine, but we're just closing the window here for just a moment. So I'll reconnect to the machine as it continues to boot up for the first time. And with the first boot up, it's going to require us to put in an administrator password. Once it's installed, we then have to deal with converting this from an evaluation unit into a working version of Windows Server. As I finish up this first login, just a reminder, the evaluation unit will run as a full server for 180 days, at which point you need to convert it into a working version of Windows with a legal license. In a traditional standalone server, it's a one-step process to use the activation key, but we're going to run across some issues that I'm going to show you how to get around. To jumpstart the process, I'm going to go into the administrative tools because I need to get to the services to make sure that very specific services are running. But here, take a look at how we identified that we're running an evaluation version. The desktop shows that we are running Windows Server 2019 standard evaluation version, and that is good for 180 days. At this point, our configuration should be ready for us to launch the services so that we can actually confirm that 3 key services are running before we can issue the commands to switch from evaluation mode to normal running server mode. look for these 3 services listed on my screen to make sure that they're running. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not, but it's important that you make sure that they are going before proceeding to the next step. If they're not, just right-click and start. So let me close down a few windows so that we can have a clean desktop. And from there, I need to get to the command prompt. And we need to run the command prompt in an elevated fashion. So I'm going to go down and click on the search and go ahead and do the CMD to find the command prompt, and then right-click on it and tell it to run it with the administrative privileges. I will put the specific command in the notes in our YouTube and the credit for where this came from. But notice that you just can't paste it in because we're running Hyper-V. You have to go to the clipboard section and tell it to type the command out. And once you hit enter, it kicks off the process to switch us over to the standard version away from the evaluation unit. I do note that sometimes I do get stuck at the 10% mark. It's important to make sure those services were running, and even then it may take a couple minutes for this to go. I also find sometimes if I hit the enter key in the command window, it kicks it up a little more quickly to get it done. Here we go. Once completed, I can then restart the machine. As explained in the notes below, this product key is just a proxy. It will not activate the Windows server, but the actual Hyper-V key supplied by Microsoft will not work with this command, so we need to do this 2-step process of converting out of the eval mode, rebooting, and then applying the legitimate key. So I'll log in, and once we log in and look at our desktop, we're going to see if we were successful or not. If we were not successful, the evaluation message would be on the bottom right-hand corner. But in this case here, we have completed the first step of moving from evaluation mode into actual mode. However, we still need to apply an active key. This time around, there is no need to make sure that all the services are properly running. All we need to do is go into the administrator mode and run the command window. And from here, I'm going to pop in this command with this activation key. Where did this activation key come from? Well, if you buy the data center version of Windows Server, you're permitted to run a specific number of Hyper-V Windows guest servers, and it uses the same key. The notes below provides the links to the official Microsoft page. Now, let's go to the File Manager to find this computer icon. We'll right-click on it, we'll choose Properties, and now we can see that the computer is running Standard Server 2019, and it is activated. For the most part, our mission is accomplished. But I'd like to do one last cleanup after shutting down the server, and that's to keep it from prompting to start from the CD on every boot up in the future. So once the server shut down, we're going to go in and take a look at the settings, and we'll see under the SCSI controller that sure enough, we have a hard drive and a DVD, but the changes are not done here. We're going to need to go up to the firmware, and from here we can change the order, and in this case, move the DVD drive down or the hard drive up, so that the order of the hard drive comes before the DVD drive, which will then speed up all future startups of this server. And now we're done. There you go. Now you can go do it yourself. If this video was helpful, like it and share it with others. Do subscribe to Power Up Training on our YouTube channel for future training sessions, both on the Office side and more technical along the nature. If you've got questions or requests for other training videos, leave them down below. And if you want to see all of our existing training videos, visit us at power-up.training. Until next time, go power up.